Hi, and welcome to everybody that's joined us on this next phase of our training session. This is going to be a session on selling skills. My name is Ken, and I'm coming to you live from Mauritius, all the way in the middle of the Indian Ocean. So what I've done is I've got my head around this selling skills thing, and I recognize how important it is in our organization to actually sell and learn to sell and get good at selling, because everything really stands or falls on sales. If you're in business, you might have a brilliant product, but if you can't sell it, what's the point? You can't sell it, you won't make any money. If you can't sell it, you won't grow the business. All of these things relate back to selling. And I often see people in business who are almost embarrassed to say that they're selling. Now, I know of a doctor who has a filling station. We also met some people on the flight to Mauritius a little while ago that were franchisees from one of the large chain stores. And there they were. They were professional people who also owned a retail outlet. And I'm sure that they were never embarrassed about the fact that they were selling. And they know for a fact that selling makes money, and it pays the school fees and pays for their dreams, and it pays for their lifestyle and livelihood and stuff like that. So from me to you, I want to encourage you to learn to sell. So what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to email you a book on selling skills. Let me show it to you quickly. Across this book, The Psychology of Selling, by Brian Tracy some time ago. And I've been looking at this book from time to time and just wondering whether this would benefit you in terms of teaching you selling skills, and I'm sure that it will. I'll email it to you. If you just send me your email address, and you can send your email to ken@show.co.za, and you can then work through this book. See that this book is actually a workbook, and it has a number of topics that I think would be most beneficial to you. It starts off there with the psychology. It talks about developing a sales personality. It asks the question why people buy. It talks about creative selling, approaching the prospect, the sales process, the psychology of closing the deals, looking at objections, different closing techniques, managing your time, and 10 keys to success in selling. Brian Tracy, as you may know, is a brilliant speaker, writer, teacher on the subject of sales. And you can see Brian Tracy's material on YouTube. He's got a website that you can go to as well. But I honestly believe that you will benefit hugely by using this little workbook and also looking at all his material that's on YouTube. I'm just going to give you a quick idea of what's going to happen. There's a lot of technical, or shall we say theoretical information, but then he concludes that sectional chapter with a little worksheet or an interactive process. So that's going to be my suggestion to you. It's about 30 pages. It's not a very long thing. So if you set yourself the goal of learning to sell using this book and going through it every single day, it's 30 pages, 30 days, I'm not sure, it's about 10 chapters, you will end off the month of August with way better skills than you have right now. And also you will have a mentor who will be able to help you in the selling game. So enough of that, back to my talk. Whenever I talk about selling, I think of it as a process, because if I've got a product or a service and I want to get it into the marketplace, I need to be able to think of myself as a salesperson. It's not a dirty word. I'm not embarrassed to say that I sell products. We have more than one business. And in fact, Penny and I make a living from selling. I do it almost every single day of my life. And there's various things that you're going to learn from the Brian Tracy book, but also I want to just share a couple of ideas with you. Now, I love acronyms. So I've come up with an acronym called Eskimo Selling. And I'll just share it with you what Eskimo Selling is all about. E is for emotions, because we know that selling is an emotional process. Firstly, people have to get their heads around the fact that they're going to sell. And then secondly, they're going to have to get their heads around the fact that they're not embarrassed to sell. The S are skills, and the Brian Tracy book are going to provide you with some real skills that you can go into the marketplace and you're going to be able to use them. The K of Eskimo is knowledge, product knowledge, knowledge of the marketplace, knowledge of your target group and stuff like that. The I is interest, your interest and their interest in whatever it is, whatever product or services that you're selling. The M is your motive, your reason for selling, and their motive and their reason and their objectives when it comes to buying. And then ultimately the O of Eskimo is the outcomes. What do you want from it? What do you want to give your client? How are you going to add value to your client? So let's just run through these quite quickly. The first one is the E, the emotive side of selling. You know, most people think of salesmen as pushy, as liars. They think of salespeople as people that want to give them something or sell them something that they don't really need. But the truth of the matter is, a good salesperson is somebody who meets the individual's need in such a way that there is a win-win situation that takes place there. Now, it is important for us to say that I want to learn to sell, because if I can sell, I can run almost any organization. I can persuade people. I can assist them with them developing their own abilities and stuff like that. But more importantly, I believe that becoming a salesperson is an affirmation. It's a goal. It's an objective. It's something that you may never regret. You will never regret learning how to sell. Whether you're selling products or services, whether you're selling yourself as a professional or you're selling a hard, tangible object, it takes a skill. And there are different types of selling. There is the consultative type of salesperson that would talk to the person, advise them, guide them, suggest to them, and that's the one that I like to be. Or alternatively, there is the conventional salesperson where you walk into a store like a retail shop or maybe even a motor dealership, and you actually buy the car from them. They don't sell it to you. They tell you about the features and benefits, but they don't actually sell you the car. They take an order. So I know of this individual who has multiple businesses and they are a professional. So here's the thought. If I have a business that sells a retail product, I can also have a business as a chiropractor or a doctor. I can have a business as a lawyer. I can be a farmer and I can be selling a product. And knowing that and recognizing that this transactional process in the sales game is vital, I can then start seeing myself as a salesman. Now, call yourself whatever you want to, a consultant. You might want to call yourself a marketing expert or whatever. But know this, without selling skills, we don't advance in business or we don't advance in our careers. Now, Zig Ziglar said something which is really important, and it goes with the issue of emotions. Emotions could be negative or emotions could be positive. Now, something that we will encourage you to do is become passionate about it. And Zig Ziglar says the following. He says, for every sale you miss because you're too enthusiastic, you will miss 100 sales because you're not enthusiastic enough. So the emotive element of getting excited about being a salesman, I feel very good about being a salesman. I have no problem whatsoever. I call myself the CEO and the founder of the company, but I'm a salesperson. Okay, that's the E. Let's move on to the S. And those are the skills. And skills range from opening conversations to discussing things with people, to engaging them, to finding out what their needs are, to negotiating with them, to closing the deal. Those are the skills that we require. We also need some tangible skills like communication skills, both physical, mental, as well as like the verbal communication skills. But there are so many skills that you need to develop and will be able to develop if you focus on becoming a salesperson that will stand you in good stead in every single area of your life. Now, the way I like to do it is this. I like to say to people, I don't want to sell you something that you don't need. And that seems to disarm them. And it shows that I'm honest about the fact that I don't want to sell them something they don't need. Why? Because they won't buy from me again if they buy something that they don't need. So I don't want to foist anything upon them, but I do want to give them advice. If they're looking for a solution, I'm the one that they're going to come to next time. The next skill that you would need to learn is questioning skills. And you will find out lots and lots of information and lots of useful stuff on questioning skills, such as how to have an open question, which results in a discourse or a discussion, or a closed question, which will result in a yes, no, or maybe. That's one of the things that I learned a long time ago, is how to ask open questions. Then there are questions that go around, what are your needs? What are your wants? What are your interests? Because the moment you can get a person into a discussion, you're going to be able to meet their needs. If you don't know what their needs are, you're just going to flog them a product or dump the product on them. So essentially, you're going to be looking at questions like when and where and why and how and who and which. All of those questions will then lead to answers which you can then make a suggestion upon. So instead of selling them the product, you could tell them about a solution which will meet their specific need. Okay, that was the S, the skill. Now, just to end off with that, Zig Ziglar says the following. He says, every sale has 5 basic obstacles: the need, the money, the hurry, the desire, and the trust. So if there's no need, you're probably not going to sell it to them unless they are just crazy about the thing. If there's no hurry, if there's no timeline, no deadline, it's going to be difficult to sell to them. If there's no desire and they don't understand don't have any motive or reason to buy something, you're not going to be able to make the sale. And if there is no trust between you and them, you're not going to be able to make the sale. Okay, so that was the S. Let's move on to the K. That's the knowledge. Now, the knowledge we're talking about is twofold. The first portion of the knowledge is the fact that you need to know what you're talking about. You need to be familiar with your product and services, its features and benefits. You need to be able to say to people, my product or the product that I represent will be able to meet that need, and here is the evidence. So that knowledge backs up with maybe websites and DVDs and information where you can prove to them. Now, for instance, if you happen to be in the health and wellness game, you're going to need to know something about health and wellness. Now, it's not impossible to get to know it. And in many instances, if you don't know it, at least you need to know where to go to get the answers. So that's the first one. It's the product knowledge. The second knowledge is who you're talking to. Things of that nature. Who buys what? They call that the demographics in the marketing world or the sales world. Because I know for a fact that I can't sell somebody something that they can't afford. So if I'm talking to the wrong person, I could spend an hour talking to them, and I have in the past. I've spent a lot of time, wasting time actually, with the wrong people. But in my market, in the training market, what happens is that I have 2 or 3 categories of people. I have those that are just curious. They just want to find out. They have no motive, but they're just curious. I have the small business owners who run training programs. Now, yeah, they need my product. There's no question about it, but they can often not afford it. Or sometimes they don't see the necessity to buy a product that's pre-prepared. They think, well, they can make it up themselves. It's like making up your own vitamins in the kitchen. Yeah, well, could work. It'll take you a long time in terms of research and development. But the other one in the marketplace are the corporates. And I know that the corporates they're the ones with the money. They're the ones that buy from me. So if you have a product that you can sell to an individual, a housewife or a homeowner, that's one portion of the market. If it's a business owner or maybe a doctor or physician or somebody like that who can actually on-sell your product, that's another part of the marketplace. Or maybe a corporation who can place standing orders where they will buy it from you over and over and over again. So getting your head around the knowledge side, very important. The last thing I'll just say there is you're never too old to learn. There are all kinds of places that you can go to. There are websites, there's DVDs, there's YouTube, there's places that you can download files like the book that I've just spoken about. So the desire for knowledge, absolute desire for knowledge, where you're going to go through the process of upskilling yourself and getting more knowledge is critical. Okay, let's move on to the I of Eskimo, and that's interest. And of course, I've already mentioned the fact that you need to be interested in this. If you happen to be in the wellness game, and I happen to be in the health and safety game as one of my businesses, I need to be interested in it. I've got to have a passion for it, which I do. I thoroughly enjoy it. I like the ins and outs. I like the legalities. I like the technicalities. I like and enjoy dealing with some of the people in the marketplace. I love it when people actually learn from me. And I thoroughly enjoy it when they compliment me on my knowledge about the product or service. I enjoy that a lot. But I also need to transfer that interest to them. So one of the ways that I can do that is find out what their interests are. Now, early on, we spoke about asking questions, and that's a brilliant way that you can find out what their interests are. So the questions would have been, what are you doing at the moment? What have you done in the past? What are your objectives? What are your thoughts? So you can find out about what they need, and then you can meet your interests in the product and services as a solution to their interests and products and needs. So knowing what their interests are helps enormously to build a relationship, because relationships are really where future business is built, not just the one-off thing. I walk into a motor dealership, I buy a car, they never speak to me again. It's crazy. I don't understand it, because ever so often I need to replace the car. Why no relationship? Why no database? Didn't they know what I wanted? In fact, just to use that as an example, the last time I walked into a dealership, they didn't ask me why I wanted to buy the car. They had no idea. They knew it was the same dealer. They knew that I'd bought a car from them, but they didn't know that things had changed in my life. I no longer needed a big car. I no longer wanted a a two-wheel drive. I wanted a four-wheel drive. I wanted something that's more rugged. I was interested in something that would be maybe a little bit of an ego statement for me. I'm not into fast cars or sports cars, but a 4x4 would have been a great idea, and they had some small 4x4s which could have worked for me. They didn't bother to ask, which means, well, I actually said to the young salesperson, I said to her, the boot is too small. She didn't even ask me why. She didn't ask me why. I could have told her, our bicycles, we need to be able to put them on the back of the car. We need to be able to put the cycling gear. We need to be able to put camping gear in the back. I'm no longer in the realm where I'm running kids to school or players or soccer or anything like that. She didn't know what my interests were. Okay. Now, having identified their interests, you could actually match your interests and you could share information with them. If they happen to be interested in a given specific thing, share information with them. You can develop a relationship where you communicate, you're sending them emails and PDF files, or you're sending them links and URLs to websites and to YouTube clips. It means that that relationship develops and you keep the whole discussion alive. Okay, now the next point over here is motive. M for motive in Eskimo. You have to be honest with yourself and ask yourself the question, why are you doing this? Because if you're comfortable with why you're doing it, then, nice to see you as well, then essentially what you're going to be doing is your motives, and you know what your motives are. So obviously your motives would be things like generating income. Your motives would be developing a business. Your motives would be maybe developing and enhancing your skills. Your motives would be creating a career for yourself or creating promotion opportunities for yourself. So it's completely up to you. Ask yourself the question, honestly, why am I doing this? Why am I going to stay up after my family have gone to bed so that I can read and research and find out more information? Why? Maybe it's a question of that you want specific types of income. Maybe that income that you want, passive income or recurring income, that's a motive. Or maybe you have an outreach mentality where you want to, and an outreach heart, where you want to touch people's lives with information and things like that. So knowing your motives, very, very important. Then, of course, if you know the interests and your motives, you can connect those two in the sales realm as well. Now, I think it was Stephen Covey, he said, begin with the end in mind. And that brings us to the O of Eskimo, the outcomes. So this is the quantifiable part. You can measure it, you can draw graphs, you can actually sort of compare month on month on month, month to month, so that you'll know last month I wasn't all that good, this month I'm good. You will also be able to determine trends, and you'll be able to see things like seasons. Sometimes you're not able to sell because it rains. Sometimes it's because the marketplace changes seasonally. So your outcomes will mean that you can actually determine whether you're succeeding at this or not. Now, one of the outcomes that you want to look for is failure. And failure is not a bad thing. Failure is a wonderful lesson or a master to teach you what not to do. Failure is something that you can embrace. And Dr. John Maxwell has that book called Failing Forward. And I'd strongly, once again, urge you to read it. But think along the lines of failure is a good thing. There's a stunning little book called Go for No, and there's a website, Go for No. And you'll see how people are able to work through their goals and objectives by specifically going for failure. They look for failure. That's their goal. I want to achieve failure, because we know that in the failure, because it's a numbers game, you're going to be able to achieve your successes. Now, I want to finish off on this session over here because my time is almost up. I just want to talk about the fact that this skill of selling, there is no born salesman. Nobody wakes up one day and goes, I'm a great salesman, and all of a sudden they got the gift of the gab. It's preparation. And there is a lovely statement that I've used before called prior preparation prevents poor performance. And if you get your head around the fact that you're going to be a great salesperson, you can sell the products and services that you're involved with right now, or the company that you will be involved with in years to come, or other organizations where you can sell the products and services. I have a friend, in fact, a family friend, who's in the fundraising industry. And what he does essentially is he goes out and raises funds for a charity. Now, isn't that selling? Might not be called selling there. He might give it some other title, fancy title or term, but that's essentially selling. I have another friend who's a minister of religion. And in a sense, that persuasion, that preaching, that's selling. That's somebody that is standing in a pulpit or an auditorium, and they are persuading people to change their minds. I have a contact who is a psychologist, and she is brilliant at persuading people to change their minds. That's selling. I've mentioned to you already that I'm going to send you a book, and I'm going to suggest that you take this book and you work through it over the next 30 days. That's selling. If you take me up on the offer, send me an email to ken@show.co.za. I will send you the book. And you can then go through the process. I've also recommended that you listen to or read or watch or observe other people, whatever, wherever they might be. That's selling. Right now, I'm going to persuade Penny to bring me a glass of wine because we're almost finished. And I'm going to ask her to bring a glass of red wine for me. And I know that she could say yes, no, or maybe. But because my skills are developing, I'm going to offer her a gift if she does that for me. And it's called a legal bribe. So there is an incentive. It's a gift. It's something that she's going to enjoy thoroughly. And she's going to bring me a glass of wine. My children, exactly the same process. If you do this, I will do that. And that's the selling game. So what I want to do is just want to end off by saying this, that like flying, nobody's born a pilot. Nobody's born a public speaker. Nobody's born to be a salesman. These are all skills. You will know this for a fact that the Grand Prix is on the go. And you look at the drivers in the Grand Prix and you realize that these drivers are brilliant, but they didn't one day wake up and get into a Formula One car and drive at ridiculous speeds and win races. It's a skill. Repetition, 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 lots of failure along the way. They just got better and better and better. And ultimately, they were absolutely world perfect. So there we go. There's a gift. I'm going to send it to you. Send me an email to ken@show.co.za. I will send you the gift. I will then monitor with you in terms of going through the worksheets in the book. Brian Tracy's book is brilliant, or his books are brilliant, and I'm going to urge you to share this video clip with as many people in your team as possible. Make sure that they know and understand that selling isn't a dirty word. It's a fantastic way of making lots of money. There are a lot of people in this world who have made a lot of money, and most of them have a really high level of selling and persuasive skills. So me, Ken, to you, have a great evening. We'll chat to you later.